Hello, this is Marty Eddington. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first in our series of webinars on aging and chronic illness. We're going to be recording these and putting this on our site. So I'm excited to have everyone here tonight. Let me get into the slides a little bit, and I'll do an introduction and then our presenter for tonight. So tonight I'm going to be doing the introduction about our membership site and about the 10 principles of personal longevity. The presentation will be by Dr. Ken Hawayek. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Ken?
You are.
Okay. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. So please think of your questions, and we'll do those at the end of the presentation. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about what we do in personal longevity. Everything we do is based on the 10 principles of personal longevity, which I'm showing here. It's all about helping people integrate spirit, mind, and body. And we have training for professionals, longevity coaching. We have a membership site on longevity, which I'll tell you more about. And everything is organized according to the 10 principles. But the whole idea is there's more to your long-term health than just your physical body. There's a lot of psychological issues, life purpose, your spiritual connection. And vital forces and love in your heart, everything that is non-physical, which is important to your health, as well as what you do with your body. So we're going to be talking also about the services that are available through the Personal Longevity membership site. This is a snapshot of it. You can learn more about it at personallongevity.com. And you can sign up for our service, which is $10 a month. And we also have a very brand new service, and Ken's going to illustrate that as one of our consultants tonight, which is all about helping people by giving them personal training in aging and chronic illness issues. So when somebody goes on our site, they click on this wellness graphic, and it takes them into an area where they can see the different consultants, their bios, and to sign up for a session. We allow people for most of what our consultants do, free half-hour sessions, and then you can decide if you want to get a paid session. So it's a really good way to get personal attention for your aging or chronic illness issue and become a member of our community, because we're building a community. And on this site, there's too much to talk about right now. The web pages talk more about it, but we've got a huge amount of information, videos, ebooks, all sorts of things you can sign up for, even our new podcast. And so again, I won't try and demo all of that tonight because it's way too much to do. But go to our website, personal-longevity.com, and when you check the products drop-down menu for different products, look at the membership subscription page, and you'll find out all the information that you want about the site. So with that, let me get into the program for tonight. Okay, our presenter is going to be Dr. Ken Hawayek. He's had a distinguished career for 22 years in podiatry and pediatric surgery. He's an expert on bone health, does presentations on heart disease, and he's expert on podiatry. And he's also an author of some engaging self-help books on health. Why don't you say a little bit more about yourself, Ken, before you dive into the presentation? How did you get into the bone health area?
Well, I was in private practice for about 22 years, and it was actually 12 more years than I had planned. I thought I'd be a podiatrist for 10 years and do something else. Life is short, and there was a lot of things that had interested me, and it kind of occurred 12 years late. 22 years after I'd started, I realized really what I like to do is I like to teach health. It's what I really like to do all along. I like to teach the average person about health, taking very complex topics and making it much more easy and engaging for them so they get real results.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken. Okay, so we're at Ken's title slide. We'll be going through a few slides here, but mostly it'll be Ken talking. And we're here at the title of your presentation called Bone Health Made Easy. Why don't you take it from here, Ken?
Sure. Thank you, Marty. Thank you for putting this together, by the way, and thank you, everybody, for coming on the line. So let's get right to it. Now, bone health made easy is my topic. It's, we're all very familiar with the idea of getting involved in something because all of a sudden it's been made easy for us. I mean, computers are a great example of that. At one time we all were kind of scared of computers. We never could have
Your line is now muted.
One, let alone own one or more. So once we do that with osteoporosis, we've got this licked. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And I'm also convinced that we've made it so unnecessarily complex. I see it in all areas. Now, if that slide is up on osteos, that's one little example. People don't like to tell you that they don't know what words mean, and they get some things mixed up that you might be surprised at, and they don't really want to reveal how they mix these terms up. So let's go through these four right here. Osteopenia. Now, that's a word that really shouldn't even exist. That was created at a meeting at the World Health Organization by Merck, Sharp, and Dohme, and ever since then, it's caused a lot of confusion. They even tried to get rid of the word. It sounds like a long word that might need to be a diagnosis that might warrant medication. And nothing could be further from the truth. All it means is almost. If it's in the yellow and it's almost green, it's in the yellow and it's almost red. Essentially, all yellow, all osteopenia means is almost. That's all it means. We don't need it. It confuses a lot of people. Osteoporosis, all that means is porous bones in Greek. We've given it much more meaning. We've arbitrarily decided that at a certain point, which happens to be a negative 2.5 T-score, something that doesn't mean much to anybody, that qualifies somebody for having osteoporosis. The World Health Organization came up with that because at that point, measured against the population, one could be seen as having a 10% risk of breaking their bones within the next 10 years because of their current bone density. But all it means is that you have porous bones. And the more porous they are, the more hollow they are, the more subject they are to breaking. So I like to look at osteoporosis this way. We fall and we break a bone. That's typically the way it works. We broke a bone because we fell. But that's not osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is you breaking a bone and then falling. That's a real good way of looking at osteoporosis. Now, osteoarthritis, here's where people get confused. I'll give a presentation, and I'm always astounded by the fact that people will raise their hand and admit right on the spot that they mix up osteoporosis and osteoarthritis. They don't know the difference. That might be surprising to some of us, but I have to explain to them what osteoarthritis is and how different it is from osteoporosis, and only after they understand all these terms will they feel like they can take the next step with things. Osteonecrosis, as we all know, is dead bone, as in dead jawbone, as in osteonecrosis or dead jawbone as a condition that didn't even occur before the medicines for osteoporosis. That's a whole other story. So what I found out is we've made things really hard. We're the only animal species on planet Earth that get osteoporosis. It's not a natural part of aging. We're not supposed to get it. There's reason to believe we once didn't get it. We shouldn't be getting it. So we've made things very hard to identify. We live a lifestyle that's very unnatural to us. I get into a lot of personal consultations with people, and I get it down to very simple terms, and I realize that at the root of this problem is three things where we've made things very complicated for people, and it's created a barrier. People are stopped at the idea that they don't understand the significance of the significance. In other words, what is the significance of it all? What does it all mean? Well, what does it all mean? It means you can die. And you can die from a hip fracture. You can die from osteoporosis. In fact, the number of women last year who died because they had osteoporosis outnumbered the number of women who died from breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, and cervical cancer combined. So let's say you fall and break your hip. You're over the age of 50. You immediately have a 24% chance of being dead in the next 12 months. I have to be this blunt with people so that they understand the problem, and I wouldn't be doing so if I didn't offer hope and I didn't know that they could get better, because they can and they will. They will get better, but they need to know the significance of this. So let's say that they did break their hip. Someone does break their hip, and they're lucky enough not to expire within the next 12 months because of that hip fracture. They nonetheless have a 75% chance of never fully recovering. So is it an issue of death and disability? You bet it is. So they get confused around this. They don't know it's a big deal. They don't know why it's a big deal. So the system, when I say system, why are they stopped at the system? Why are they confused by the system that's in place? Well, the system are the terms we use. Just like I had mentioned with all those osteos, there are a lot of terms that people don't understand what they mean. They don't know what a DEXA scan is, which is really the gold standard for measurement, which is what the doctor will typically order. They don't know the difference between that and the one that they can self-monitor with. I have to get them up to snuff on that. Once I do, they begin to self-monitor. Okay, so we've done a bad job at this system because, 7 out of 10 people who have osteoporosis don't even know they have osteoporosis, which means we've done a pretty bad job of identifying it in this country. We need to employ all measures to get out there and identify it. Okay, the last thing that people get confused about, where things are unnecessarily complex, are the solutions. The solutions that we're hearing about are old. They're stale. They're inaccurate. They don't work. We're hearing the same thing over and over from supposed experts who are basically telling you what they've read. They're telling you what could work. They tell you what should work based on what they know, when in fact the things that I keep hearing from these experts are things that they don't work. And, I tested thousands of people. I don't trust what I read unless I'm seeing it bear out in vivo. So I ask people what got them better, what got them worse, and they tell me. And I've been quite surprised over the years as to what really does raise one's bone density and what really does not. So I get people into a concept that I refer to as ABC. So can you go to that slide, Marty?
Okay.
Okay, so the next slide, which I refer to as the busy slide, if you look at the top, you see a graph. Green, yellow,
Your line is now unmuted.
When someone gets tested for bone density to measure their...
Wait a second. Okay, now I'm on the slide. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So people want to know how they're doing. They want to know what their status is. They want to know if they're getting better. They want to know if they're getting worse. So they trust on the system of diagnosis, which is often done by the doctor. In fact, it's always done by the doctor. We're not supposed to diagnose. You're only supposed to diagnose if you're a licensed healthcare professional. But you know what? This is such a big deal, and it's so easy to understand. We don't need to solely entrust it into the medical delivery system. People know green is bad, green is good, and red is bad, and they need to know whether or not they're engaging the medical delivery system or not. They need to know whether they're good or bad, and it's not hard. So if they got tested through heel ultrasound, which is easy, affordable, practical, they're going to find out if they're in the green, yellow, red. Green meaning low risk for fracture, in other words, high bone density. Yellow, sometimes known as osteopenia, is moderate risk for fracture, now called low bone density or borderline. And then red, technically, is osteoporosis, high risk for fracture. But we don't have to use those scary words. We don't have to diagnose. They will know whether they're doing well or not. Now, if they're in the red, they want to get to yellow. If they're in the yellow, they want to get to green. And if they're in the green, they want to get greener. This engages people. I've noticed that people never remember their T-score. They never remember their multitude of scores on their bone density. They never remember it, but they always remember their color. So this engages people. And I use colors to have them understand readily how they're doing and to help them measure against their last one. And you can't have a before without an after. You can't have an after without a before. It takes a baseline to get things started. All right? Now, the bottom part of that busy slide is treatment. The upper half being the colors, the graph, or what I call diagnosis. If you could say diagnosis, because they're not supposed to diagnose, right, unless we're a licensed healthcare professional, but the patient can essentially diagnose. They can know where they're at. And they should know where they're at. They should not be kept in the dark. And they should not have to rely on a DEXA scan for self-monitoring because they didn't understand the first one, let alone have to compare it to a second one. The doctor doesn't have time to explain it. They often don't explain it well. It's a multitude of scores, and you do not need to use that many bones to get a full assessment. You need to follow one good predictive bone, apples to apples to apples, and see how it goes. Because using the heel bone, which has the greatest predictive value, as the heel bone goes, so go all the bones in the body. Yes, they should get a diagnosis somehow at the beginning, but once they have that diagnosis, you don't have to keep diagnosing. You have to allow the patient to monitor themselves as well. So they need to know whether they're getting better or worse at all times. Once they have the starting point, they can get frequent follow-ups. They can do this early and often if they do it by heel ultrasound. So the top part is diagnosis, essentially. The bottom part is treatment. If I was allowed to say that I could treat myself, if I was allowed to use the word treatment with a patient, where a patient is not supposed to do treatment in the United States is a chemical. It's a pharmaceutical. It's a licensed, registered chemical used as a pharmaceutical. But that should not be treatment for osteoporosis. That's one of the worst ways you can treat it. It doesn't even work as well as its alternatives. It's more dangerous, and yet it's the only ammunition the doctor has in her gun. If she or he can't qualify you for the diagnosis of osteoporosis based on a DEXA scan, well, then they're done with you. They don't go through the ABCs with you. They don't go through the fundamentals with you. They're trying to either qualify you or disqualify you for the medication, and then it ends at that. This is tragic. ABC, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, works better than the medicines. It's safer than the medicines. It's been around a long time, way before the medicines. It makes the medicines look like they work. It ought to be used with the medicines, and long after the medicines need to be stopped because of their dangerous effects, the ABC continues. Therefore, ABC is not the other thing. ABC is the main thing, and the medications are the other thing, if at all. Okay? There's so much that people are not hearing out there, and I'm telling you, A worked quite well, and there's good reason why A is before B. B works really well, too, and there's good reason why it's before C. It's in order of priority because it's in that order. It's in that order of what is most potent or most powerful. So activities, well, what are the activities? Well, first of all, I have to tell you what the activities aren't that help bone density well. In other words, some activities help it a whole lot better than others. Technically, it really isn't weight bearing or weight resistance like you're hearing. Weight bearing could be found with the elliptical exercise. You could be standing all day long in weight bearing. Neither of those functions or activities will raise your bone density. Swimming, great exercise, good for your heart, good all-around exercise does not raise your bone density. Lastly, bicycling. Bicyclists have a higher incidence of osteoporosis than the general population does. Their feet are not hitting the ground. Your feet are not hitting the ground well enough when you swim. When you bicycle, you're sitting. Does weight resistance help? It does, but not to the degree that micro impact does. And the machines that will be augmenting that are already here, and I discuss this with people.
Your line is now muted.
With me. The machines are already here that replace walking, they replace running, they augment both. It's an exciting time now because we finally have something for the elderly and disabled who have not been able to do all the things we've been asking them to do all these years, and yet they're the ones who are most at risk and needing this help. They've not been able to do it, but we have that remedy for them now, and we do it through technology that allows that micro-impact to occur while they're standing through these certain types of vibration machines called low-intensity vibration. Okay. B, real quickly, are the bad to the bone things. B for bring the bad stuff down or bad to the bone. There are 7 things. Here they are. And with each person, they need to do less of at least one of these items, and when they do, their bone density will improve. Given all things being the same, if they subtract something that they need to subtract, they may get better. They may not have to add something to their lifestyle. They may get better from something that they merely subtracted. So here are the 7 things. Smoking. Soda. Soda is a disaster for your bones. It has everything in it you do not want for your bones. Next thing is sugar. Sugar causes acid. Your dentist has told you that for how it affects your mouth, the inside of your oral cavity. It creates acid. It does so in your bloodstream as well. When you create acid, you need to buffer it. Your body needs to make Tums, which are largely calcium. Tums are mostly calcium. Our body literally tries to make Tums, and that calcium that it pours into the bloodstream to neutralize that acid state, that calcium that your body releases comes from your bones. So osteoporosis is as much a calcium imbalance as it is a calcium deficiency. So getting back to the 7, I mentioned smoking, soda, sugar, also salt. Your bones are half water. Salt dehydrates. So do a number of these 7 things. They will dehydrate. They will acidify. You don't want to do that to bones. So you do not want to take in a lot of sodium. You do not want to take in a lot of white table salt. And the last 3 things are meat. You do not have to be a vegetarian or vegan to raise your bone density, but you do need to curtail the amount of animal protein that you take in. Don't do animal protein in excess. That's an established controllable risk factor for osteoporosis. Number 6 of those 7 is alcohol. Don't drink like a fish. Don't drink more than 2 or 3 drinks a day. There are certain types of drinks that are actually helpful for your bones, which I won't get into here, but when you do so in excess, the alcohol in the drinks will overcome the benefits of that drink, whether they're flavonoids or silicon or whatever. Don't do it in excess. Don't do any of these 7 things in excess. It's all about moderation. And the last thing is caffeine. Don't do that in excess. Don't drink more than 3 cups of regular coffee a day. You can drink more of the decaf kind. You can drink much more of the green tea kind, which also has caffeine, but it has less caffeine. But don't go overboard on the caffeine. And then lastly, complete nourishment. It means you're going to eat well and you're going to supplement well. I see that a lot of people eat well, but they don't necessarily supplement well, and vice versa. So when I get into a personal consultation with people, I'll go through A, B, and C with that person as it applies to them. I'll ask them a number of questions as to why they got into this pickle in the first place. I'll go through my entire list and find out why they're at risk. And then I'll have remedies that apply to them, and they don't have to do the things that they don't want to do. I get a feel for what they have been doing, they haven't been doing, what they like to do, what they don't like doing. And in the end, we always end up formulating a long action plan that I'll email to them in the end. And having spent 2, 3, 4 hours with them over successive sessions, each of which is probably only about 20 minutes each, and I do it by phone, that's a much more comfortable way for people to get this help. They're not going to get that 3 or 4 hours from a treatment room. They're not going to get it from an office visit. Doctors aren't going to spend that much time with them. I will, and I do it at the patient's own convenience. We do it at their own schedule, at 20 to 30-minute phone segments. And in the end, having gone through it all, we've gotten to that action plan, and in the process, we've done 2, 3, 4 hours with an action plan that will actually work. And I let them hold my feet to the fire because I measure the results at the beginning. We measure the results at the end to see how much they improved. So what I do is evidence-based, it's non-radiation, and it's appealing. And that's pretty much it, Marty. That's kind of the synopsis of what I do and how it applies.
Your line is now unmuted.
What I do at the personal consultations.
That's great, Ken. Thanks for the presentation. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show how people can sign up for the membership site and sign up for your services, and then we'll go to an open question and answer forum. So I'm displaying this right now.
I guess we're back in order.
Yeah, we're back. Okay, again, so I apologize, people, for the crash. I will, of course, take this out of the recording. Anyway, so if you want to get a personal training or consulting from Ken, these are the steps. You go to our website, personal-longevity.com. You choose the prices menu and the multiple prices drop down. And then choose personal longevity subscription service for $10 a month. Once you've ordered that, you'll immediately see the home page, and on the home page you can select the aging and chronic illness section, which also has an image of wellness. On that page you'll see pictures of Ken and our other consultants. By clicking on those you can see their detailed bios, and just below that you can set up an appointment for a free intro or a paid session. So say you wanted to get more information and personal training with Ken on your bone health, you would pick the correct session and then set a time and pay for it online. So those are the steps to go through, and that's all I had to say. So let me unmute people now and get your questions. Just a minute. Okay, I see Becky, you're muted, so it doesn't look like I'm going to promote you to presenter, but you maybe still be muted. Kath, I just unmuted you, I think. Corey, do you want to go ahead with any questions? Because you're unmuted.
I do, and I want to thank Ken very much. I very much enjoyed this, and the way that you spoke, making it so simple and understandable. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any? Oh, thank you. Do you have any experience in working with herbs, with healing bones?
No, and you know what? I'm going to tell you this because I think this ought to come out of the mouths of a lot of bone health experts. There's a lot that I don't know. Even though I wrote a book on this, there's a lot that I don't know, and herbs are one category of what I don't know. And when I have people come up to me who are doing something that they're going to try to help their bone density with their herbs or whatever, I want to know what it is. And when people ask me, well, will it work? Does it work? I will always say, I don't know. Let's measure. My machine won't lie. Let's get you on those herbs. Let's test you now. Let's test you in 6 months. I'll know, and my machine will tell me if it worked or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who has another question?
This is Kath. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Ken, can you tell us a little bit about the calcium situation?
Okay, so here's the thing with calcium. There are various forms of calcium. I'm one of those who believe that you perhaps could get enough calcium from your diet if you know where those true rich sources of calcium are. They tend to be a lot from plant sources, by the way. If someone has a good feel for what they need to buy when they go to the grocery store and knows the four main categories, it's a good possibility they're going to get enough calcium if they eat properly. And you don't hear that a lot from people. And I know that we've over-tilled the soil in North America, that the topsoil has been depleted by about 85%, and that most are feeling that we have to supplement in order to get the minerals. And let's say that a person should supplement because they're not getting those minerals. They still should not go beyond 900 milligrams. I tell people, if you're eating well, why don't you try to supplement with 500 milligrams? If you're not eating well, you don't trust your intake of minerals, why don't you go to 900? But no one needs to exceed 900 milligrams of calcium a day. It needs to also be said that nobody can absorb more than 600 milligrams at a time, and that calcium is best taken when it's taken by supplement. It needs to be spread out. It needs to be taken with food, not because it has to be taken with food, but because it can be taken with food. In other words, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to absorb more of it. So you better be eating well if you're going to try not to supplement. And if you aren't eating well, be careful not to take too much.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can I go back and ask another question about that? My naturopath has me on calcium and magnesium and K2, vitamin K2.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently vitamin K2 takes it to the bones instead of to the arteries and where it would clog.
Yep. Right. Do you want to know why magnesium and K2 take a little bit of a backseat to calcium and vitamin D?
Yeah.
Magnesium is very necessary in some people. There's a question of just how much we are getting from our diet and whether we're getting enough, and there's a lot of dispute over that. But there's so much benefit to taking magnesium as a supplement, and you're not going to harm yourself by taking a lot. But I want you to think of magnesium as the glue. It's the glue that holds the calcium molecules together. We all remember chalk when we used to use blackboards, and the chalk that we would drop on the floor could break. We could break that chalk in our hands. And chalk is calcium without magnesium. If you can place magnesium in there in the right way, it will adhere in a way as such as glue, and that calcium, that chalk, would not break as easily. That's what magnesium does. And many say you need a 2-to-1 ratio of calcium to magnesium. Well, that's probably true, but one needs to look at their diet to see if they're getting enough magnesium from their diet in the first place. Now, the other thing about K2, a lot of people don't realize that we actually produce K2. Our body actually makes vitamin K. Some will dispute whether we're making enough to warrant not supplementing. But again, you're not going to harm yourself. You have to be careful. A lot of times you have to be under physician guidance with K2 because you want to make sure you're getting the right type of K2. There's K2 and K3, and when done properly, the danger really doesn't exist. But K2 is a great thing to take with your vitamin D and with your calcium.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. I tried to unmute Ron and Becky, but I wasn't able to. You might have it muted on your end. Are you able to unmute if you want to ask any questions? Okay, I also muted Corey because of the background noise. All right, so I'll ask one question, and then I guess we'll consider it done unless Ron or Becky comes in. So tell me, Ken, what is the difference between bone health for men and women?
Well, men don't usually take it seriously. Quite honestly, they usually don't. When I talk in front of large male groups, whatever, I have to mention a couple things right at the outset to get their attention, such as It's more common for a man to have osteoporosis than it is for a man to have prostate cancer. And that statistic I laid out about having a 1 in 4 chance, a 24% chance of dying from a hip fracture if you're over the age of 50, well, guess what? A man has a 46% more likelihood of dying from that hip fracture than a woman does. A man who breaks his hip does not do well. And a man also has a 1 in 4 chance of incurring an osteoporosis-related or bone density-related fracture in a lifetime. So is it an issue amongst men? You bet it is. In fact, you can say it's common amongst men. Even if it isn't as common, that doesn't make it uncommon. It's not a women's disease. Osteoporosis is a disease of everybody. In fact, you're going to hear osteoporosis spoken at times as a pediatric disease. It actually is. It's a pediatric condition with geriatric consequences. And I don't think we have enough time here for me to explain how it actually is a pediatric condition. What we need to know is it's very much an issue for men in a very different way.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And thank you very much for doing the presentation tonight, Ken, and for everybody else who attended. And I think we'll end it here. Now, this entire session is going to be recorded, and it will be in our area on the subscription site, but also open to people if they want to see this again, see this recording, or see it or listen to it as a podcast. In fact, you can go to our website, personal-longevity.com, and at the very bottom of the page, there is a link that will take you to podcasts and webinars, so you can look at ones like this tonight down there. So thanks again for everybody attending, and we're done for tonight. We'll do it again in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Marty.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.